Hi, so good day, everyone, and welcome to yet another special conversation here from Assuage Business Development Limited. I am Melina Lewis, Director of Business Administration and Operations, and today's conversation is all about getting SMEs loan ready, preparing for financial success, and brought to you, of course, by Assuage Business Development Limited. And in this conversation, we're giving focus to increasing SME and MSME awareness of the core requirements of that financial institutions use to assess loan eligibility, offer actionable guidance on strengthening operations, record keeping, and strategic positioning. We want to talk about positioning a culture of proactive financial planning and investment readiness, as well as creating a pathway for ongoing business development support post webinar. So, of course, we have with us Roll Rolloff, Director of Business Development here at Assuage Business Development Limited. And joining us from the Trinidad and Tobago Manufacturers Association is Ilanka Manrique. We're going to label her today as that results driven business development officer, because that's why she's here, right? To collaborate so that we can have that results driven focus towards getting manufacturing companies ready for that success when it comes to the financing. Of course, Ms. Manrique plays a key role in advancing the organization's strategic objectives by supporting member engagements, advocacy, fostering industry partnerships, and promoting the growth and competitiveness of the manufacturing sector. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Management Studies and a Master of Science in Strategic Leadership and Innovation. So she's bringing her strong voice and expertise as she represents TTMA today with a strong focus on strategic planning, stakeholder relations, and organization development. We're happy to have her because she is committed to driving sustainable business growth and contributing to the manufacturing sector. And for those of you who are familiar with ABDL, we always say that we are positioned to support growth focused companies. So it's always a pleasure when we have persons like Ms. Manrique joining in with us because we're of same mind. And of course, we're coming together to partner for a great conversation about how we could support SMEs. So, kicking off the conversation, I want to bring our Director of Business Development and Sales to the forefront, Roll Roloff, as he gives some insight and really gets this really important conversation going. Roll, hi, and thank you, of course, for being here.
Hello and good morning and welcome again, Miss Manrique. It's so good to have you here. I mean, how can we have a conversation that speaks to manufacturing entities without the Manufacturing Association, right? And we have a very esteemed guest. You heard that bio, folks. You see how you heard that bio, so you know that AB and ABDL always brings to you quality content as well as quality leadership and quality guests, right? In with us. So this whole question, Alina and Miss Manrique, about loan readiness is so significant. We've just had a budget and a lot of incentives and a lot of things to help boost business. Um, I think, however, in my estimation and from what we've seen at ABDL, that in the area of access to loans, access to financing, there still is a little bit of a lag, right? Even though a lot of things are available, there are some obstacles or some challenges when it comes to being able to access the financing. And that is really what we would like to get into. And of course, here from the TTMA's perspective, because they deal with manufacturing entities on an ongoing basis, right? So what I like to do, Alina, is just jump in a little bit about one of the programs that we're excited about. They've been recently um, featured at the Trade and Investment Conference put on by the TTMA, right? And that's Republic Bank's $1 billion manufacturing loan facility. So can I jump into that one time, Alina?
Yes, of course.
Sure. So we're excited about it, and certainly we're looking forward to having representatives at Republic Bank to come in and to share a little bit more. But from our preliminary research, this is just a little bit, folks, about what we've been able to gather, right? So what's the program? Now, the manufacturing support program, right, was launched in May of this year, so it's freshly minted, right? And it's titled Republic Bank's Manufacturing Support Initiative Manufacturing Expansion Facility. The objective is to boost and strengthen the local manufacturing sector in TT by improving competitiveness, increasing export potential, reducing import dependency, and helping manufacturers to earn foreign exchange. And who can, I mean, we could all do with a little extra foreign exchange, right, Miss Manrique? Right? So this is what we've gathered, and so far in terms of some of the key features and terms, right, in the particular offering. So an offer is a total of 1 billion TT that the bank is making available through this facility. So they're really, really saying that, listen, we're serious about this initiative and we have these funds set aside for this specific purpose. Each borrower can can have access to up to $35 million once they satisfy, of course, all the criteria. We know there's always a criteria element of it. The funds are targeted towards capital expenditure. So capex is important. Equipment acquisition, and also, which I find very interesting here, is that it supports working capital as well in some contexts, right? And we know pretty often this is where a lot of challenges, address in terms of getting the working capital, support, right? So yeah, so let's look at some of the eligibility criteria, right, in terms of how SMEs, MSMEs can access some of these programs, right? So of course, the business must be a corporate commercial entity in the manufacturing sector because that's the focus, right? It must demonstrate a feasible plan that would enhance competitiveness, increase export potential, or reduce import dependency. The entity must be at least 5 years, so 5 years or more in the manufacturing sector. And of course, any application must accompany the proper records, the financial statements, financial projections, and those elements are always key. So I think on the surface, Alina, again, it sounds really, really good. Um, I think it's real value from the manufacturers. Of course, we'll hear a little bit more from Ms. Manrique a little later, right? But I believe it helps to address this big constraint of access, particularly to capital for equipment and for any type of capital intensive upgrade that entities would want to make, right? Of course, it is the encouragement of technology, which I believe is also very, very good, right? Which helps entities become more competitive, cut operational costs, make them more export ready for those that are exporting, right? And I know that the government, particularly with the last budget, would like the idea of anything that also helps to reduce our import dependency. So for these reasons, Alina, I believe that this particular program looks very good. I'm really excited to have a representative from the bank to join us to share a little bit more about the intricacies of it. Yeah. So I turn right back over to you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that role. I know that we're going to have Miss Manry coming on, but before she shares with us from the perspective of the manufacturers, I wanted to ask you, I like to visualize the practical implication of something. So we talked about being in business for at least 5 years and so on. But let's say we have an entrepreneur that has never applied for a loan before, but they're looking at the projections, they're seeing where business can be approved with financing, improved in so many different ways. But because they've never gone through the process, they're not sure where to start. Can you share some insight? I know ABDL has a loan readiness framework, but even before we get into that, can you share any insights, Roll, about what are those initial starting points the entrepreneur should consider as they get ready to become loan ready? Can you give some insights on that?
Sure, sure. A lot of our clients are faced with one main challenge, right? And that relates to record keeping. I'd say a great place to start is to keep proper records, keep regular records, right? Keep accurate records, and keep up to date with all your statutory obligations, because these are some of the things that come back to haunt, when you have to now pull all the data and information together, right? It also will impact your ability to then make projections for the future, to make proper or more accurate cash flow projections because you don't have the data, or the data isn't in a manner that makes it easily accessible for projections and so forth. So I would say certainly that's a big part of it. You want to also be constantly aware of your market position. All right. Um, I would say being data driven is important, and all this goes down to the type of market research that you're doing, because when you present to the bank or any loan entity for that matter, you want to be able to present something that makes sense in terms of the market conditions and your particular strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities that you bring to the fore. So I would say record keeping, good market research. Those are some key elements that they'd want to follow. Of course, a little later on, we can share a little bit more about the diagnostic tool that we have to help with some other areas. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thanks for sharing that. So let's take hold of where we're at. We're encouraging entrepreneurs to recognize the importance of being positioned for loans. Loans is not a matter of we're saying, "Hey, I want a loan. I'm just going to go to the bank." We're saying, "No, let's take a pause and let's be introspective about where we are in our business and how we are positioned for that." We're recognizing that RBL has this major facility available. We have other commercial banks also making available options for financing and so on. To this point in the conversation, we're encouraging entrepreneurs to keep in mind no matter what kind of business you're in, your record keeping is critical, your financial records critical. Your statutory obligations, of course, we're talking not just you've registered your business, but how have you been doing your upkeep, annual returns, national insurance compliance. All of these things are critical. Looking at your market position because you need to justify the need and the credibility of this request for a loan. And we are encouraging entrepreneurs to be data driven. Now, of course, each industry is unique. They all face their own challenges or unique hurdles. So I'm really excited to have Miss Manrique really come center to share with us what is it that entrepreneurs operating in the manufacturing industry should be mindful of. And we're even happy to hear the views in terms of their journey and maybe challenges that they experience. Because even as ABDL positions itself with its loan readiness diagnostic tool, we too are eager to be a part of the learning process for the manufacturing industry. So as we continue to provide services, we could continue to heighten these services. So, Ms. Manrique, thank you again for being here, and we're excited to hear from you.
Sure, not a problem. So thank you, Alina and Mr. Alex, for setting the tone for the session today. I would say some of the challenges that our manufacturers, more particularly the micro, small, and medium-sized ones, face are things related to like collateral. Sometimes, in the banking industry, equipment and machinery may not be accepted as a form of collateral. So I would say that is one of the major challenges that they have because they have this type of form of collateral, let's say machinery equipment that may not be able to be accepted or work when going for a loan. So that is a major challenge, especially for the micro and small companies. In addition to that, as you mentioned, you were speaking about your record keeping proper record. Some of the SMEs, some of the micro businesses, they are literally as I could say in layman terms, a one-man shop. They are the accountant, they are the production supervisor, they are the warehouse attendant, they are the quality assurance personnel. So they act as a one-man shop where they do everything within their organization, and some aspects of the company of their business may actually fall short. They may falter in some areas, having to focus on other areas that they may seem more important in terms of, doing their production to supply the demand for their good, for their product. So that is also a challenge. And going for loans, going and approaching a financial institution, you are required to have proper records. Sometimes you need audited financials, and a lot of manufacturers, or I would say a lot of the smaller ones, they mainly do management accounts. They don't have audited financials, which in some cases is what the banks would like to see. Another challenge I would say for manufacturing is related to like operational challenges in terms of some companies may not have the best type of equipment, the more modern equipment, they're working with what they have while they try to scale their businesses. In some organizations, productivity might be an issue. Um, Sometimes in terms of productivity, as I said, persons is a one-man shop, they're doing everything. Some companies may have additional employees, but productivity may not be there. So this is an operational challenge that they may have within their organization, which could then have an impact on the growth and scale of their business, which could also impact their credit worthiness and their credibility in terms of how big would this business become if the bank is if you're asking a bank to give you a loan to scale your business. Some banks may, they may not think that your business is scalable enough or that you're showing growth projections over a period of time. So I would say this is some of the challenges that manufacturers face, mainly on a micro, small to medium scale. Of course, the large businesses are a bit more sustainable, self-sufficient. They rely on their exports, etc., to fund their businesses. But the micro, small, and to some extent the medium-sized ones do face these types of challenges when trying to get financing and scale their businesses in the short to long term. So that's what I would say.
So, thank you, Miss Manrique. From what you shared, would you say that access to financing is plays a critical role in growth and innovation in the manufacturing sector? And if so, what has been your experience in terms of what you've seen in terms of loan approvals? Has that been improving? Has that been declining? What you say is the trend and what's driving that trend?
Okay, so in terms, I'll answer the first part of the question. First, in terms of the importance of financing to grow a manufacturing sector, to grow the industry, I would say it is critically important. Without financing, it comes down to you will not be able to scale your business at the level at which you may desire to. So financing is critically important. It also influences the innovation in small, medium, micro, and even large businesses. And financing is needed if a company would like to get into the grocery stores, if a company would like to export. Financing and being able to access loans is critical to do so, because they may have to invest in machinery, they may have to invest in equipment, they may have to hire more employees to ramp up the production and the manufacturing of their product. So financing and access to finance is one of the most important things in a business. And it is important that the local financial institutions, the government, the state agencies, such as like the global TT, the Exim Bank, etc., provide that support for manufacturers, for businesses on a whole, in order to scale and grow their business. Without money, without financing, without access to finance, you could limit and stunt the growth of an organization, especially when they have a good product. A lot of our SMEs have really great products, but they need access to finance in order to enhance it and grow on a global level and to be able to compete globally. In terms of, you were asking about the loan approvals over the years, if we've seen any trends. On the TTMA side, we could only go based on what member companies bring to our attention. We are not a financial institution, and we don't get too involved as it relates to knowing the processes, etc., that companies go through in accessing finance. But I would say that um, there has been a level of improvement due to initiatives that have been offered by some of the financial institutions. I know you were speaking about Republic Banks, their new product that they came out with, which was actually, they highlighted it at our Trade and Investment Convention and had a seminar on it in which manufacturers attended and were really interested and intrigued by this new facility. So I would say, in terms of approvals, I'm sure there has been an improvement due to the initiatives that the government as well as the financial institutions have brought to the forefront, introduced to manufacturers, giving them more options. Global TT has grant facilities. We have Republic Bank with their facility. I remember a couple of years back, the Ministry of Finance, during the COVID pandemic, they did come out with some facilities through the different financial institutions. I think Republic, FCB, Scotia, all the local major banks where manufacturers were able to access financing through these facilities, sometimes through interest-free loans. I remember during the pandemic, there were interest-free loans and grants that were being given to manufacturers once they meet the criteria, of course, which is, we must mention, you have to meet a certain criteria to access these types of these programs and initiatives.
Yes, thank you for that. I know a lot of the focus of our discussion is on loan financing, and certainly we have in our suite of programs of podcasts coming up, we want to address other forms of financing. But just as just to get a sense from you, do you get a sense that manufacturers are accessing other types of financing, whether it's through equity or private investment? Do you have a sense that they're going in that way? I know certainly there has been effort to have the junior stock exchange and have people put on the stock exchange, but do you have a sense that these other forms are being accessed as well?
Yes, for sure. I would say that the manufacturers, SMEs, especially micro and small ones, they are accessing other type of financing. A lot of them are going the avenue of the grant funding that has been made available by the government over the years through Global TT, their previously Export TT. There are grant funding facilities that some companies are capitalizing on, especially as it relates to acquiring machinery and equipment. That I would say that's the main thing that many companies go for, obtaining the machinery and equipment through grant funding facilities. But of course, some of these facilities are limited in terms of the amount that you can access. I think one of the facilities from Global TT, I think the maximum amount is 250,000, and machinery and equipment could scale far beyond that amount. So I would say grant funding, yes, persons are capitalizing on that. I could mention that Exim Bank, the Export Import Bank of Trinidad and Tobago, they also have a loan facility, a US dollar loan facility, that companies that don't necessarily have the TT cash to pay upfront to purchase the forex, to pay their international suppliers for raw materials. Um, they are opting to use the Exim Bank's loan, foreign exchange loan facility. So some persons are choosing to go through that avenue as well. I would say, in terms of the junior stock exchange, I could mention that TTMA actually has an MOU with the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange to promote that SME stock exchange facility. And earlier
Excellent.
this year, we would have done a session to sensitize our members that this facility exists and you could invest in equity financing in order to grow and scale your business. Coming out of that session, we did have a couple companies showing interest. Of course, some persons, are thinking about the risk. Some persons are still, a bit reserved in going after this type of unconventional type of investment and financing. But we did get some leads coming out of that, and we're hoping within the short to medium term that we do have a few more manufacturers listing
Yes.
on the exchange. But I wouldn't say that it may be the first call to action where they go after this type of financing. It does take a bit of convincing to get them to get their company ready and to get them convinced that this is an option for you as well.
Yes. And this is certainly where we feel as an entity, Assuage, that there is some opportunity because we've discerned there's great degree of hand holding that's necessary, right? Sometimes particularly smaller ones feel a little intimidated. They don't have the level of research sometimes, and sometimes even the contracting part. In fact, it's one of the things we're working on with the Trinidad and Tobago Coalition of Services Industries that we're part of as well, in terms of providing technical support, right? Even in the area of the legalese, you understand? There's a lot of technical support required in understanding the contracts, putting MOUs together, a range of these things. So certainly, of course, at another time we'll talk more about it. But jumping back into the loan part of it, um, would you say that there's a recognition of the importance of cash flow management um, on the part of your members, and that the role that plays in helping them prepare themselves for accessing a loan and demonstrating repayment capacity? What has been your experience?
I'm glad you mentioned cash flow management. This is a very important aspect of business, and I must mention the micro and small ones as well, because sometimes when they are now trying to scale their businesses, cash flow is a major thing. Sometimes the money that they're making goes right back into the business, where they're not able to um, invest in other areas because they're trying to keep themselves afloat in order to get to a stable level to grow. So I would say cash flow management is an issue, is a challenge. Even sometimes they have cash flow challenges due to the repayment of outstanding VAT refunds, the delays with that. That then puts them in a position where cash flow is an issue because they're waiting to get back certain types of, well, their refunds as well, and they still have to keep their business afloat, settle outstanding balances, settle payments to their international suppliers, etc. And it's actually an underestimated area. Persons don't necessarily talk about their cash flow management. They're just trying to sustain and keep their business afloat. But this is an issue. And plenty times I would say SMEs, they try to more focus on selling their product, um, and they put more focus and emphasis on sales rather than their cash conversion cycles. They just trying to sell, keep themselves afloat in some cases, especially if they're a little bit more advanced. They're trying to keep afloat and make a little profit to sustain themselves and their families as well. And this is something that banks may look at in terms of their repayment capacity. Um, and their cash flow projection. Sometimes it's difficult to predict how their cash flow will be going over a period of time, and banks have to take this into consideration because they are taking a risk to lend you money in order to scale their business, and they have to secure themselves to ensure that they'll be able to recover their monies with interest, and still keep your business afloat in order
Afloat,
to
yeah.
continue to repay them and settle your debt. So I would say it is a challenge. Sometimes it's something that is overlooked from companies, and then the bank. This is something that they have to take into consideration as a financial institution. We have to be fair on their end as well.
Yeah. Would you say that a lot of entities, there's a challenge with being undercapitalized to begin with, in terms of a lot of these entities in their formative years and when they began, they have such a tight cash position and they've never been able to come out of it. Do you think undercapitalization is an issue?
Yes, I would say undercapitalization is an issue for SMEs, especially when they now getting their foot in the door, and trying to scale and grow their business. I would definitely say that is a challenge, not only medium to large side, but definitely on the micro to small side. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So from what we've described, earlier I shared a little bit about the RBL loan program, right? Just from what you've heard and maybe what you've been exposed to, do you see some positives here? Do you think it's something that can benefit members of the TTMA and manufacturers wherever they are?
Most definitely, the facility introduced by Republic Bank is something that I think our members will benefit from. We actually had a previous session beside the one that they had at TIC, to sensitize manufacturers and SMEs who were there exhibiting about the facility. We did, coming out of TIC, we also had a session trying to sensitize the membership that, hey, this facility exists and this is something that you all could capitalize on. This $1 billion facility, you could utilize it to get machinery, equipment, raw materials, etc. And I would say it is a great facility that they have introduced. I'm not sure if it's fully utilized as yet. I mean, it's $1 billion. So
Yeah,
I'm not sure if it's fully utilized and subscribed to as yet, but it is a facility that our members, the manufacturing community, and even companies outside of our membership could benefit from. If your goal is to purchase machinery and equipment, if your goal is to stock some of the raw materials that you will need over a 3 to 6 month basis, whatever it is related to the business model, I think it's a facility that companies should, maximize and capitalize on, right?
Yes, yes. And I saw I was at one of the sessions and I saw that there was a recognition that record keeping may be an issue and was actually shared that listen, come with your records wherever they are, right? Even if you have it in a shoebox, in envelopes, bring it and we will still support you. So I found that was a recognition of some of the challenges that are faced out there. But would you say that from your interaction, right, with your members and as they're trying to access funds, financing, that lending policies of the various banks and institutions are adequately aligned to the realities of SMEs? And if not, would you recommend any changes, right, to make it so?
I would say across most of the financial institutions, even when you're going for grant funding facilities which offered through government agencies, they are generally standard across the board. I would say that the audited financials could be a challenge for organizations because some of them just use management accounts. Some companies don't even, especially the SMEs, they don't even know where to start in terms of having proper accounting, right? So I would say that is one of the major issues in terms of the audited financials. That could be a challenge. Some persons not able to even invest in procuring the services of a institution who could provide that. I actually have an example. A couple days ago, someone would have called us. They're trying to access one of the facilities. I wouldn't name the organization, but they require to have the audited financials. And the man, he highlighted to us, well, right now I trying to buy some machinery and equipment, and I got a quote to get audited financials, and it was over $80,000 to pay for the service. And he was like,
Yes,
I rather invest that money and go and buy some machinery and equipment. I don't have that money to pay to have the service to get my accounting in order. So I would say that is one of the major challenges. It is the same across the board in plenty organizations. I know RBL said wherever you are with your organization, they will meet you and work with you to get it up to standard. But it is the same across the board. Some of them have the same set of requirements that an SME may have to meet in
yes,
order to access financing. In my professional capacity, the most I could recommend is that banks offer, or financial institutions offer services where they could get the companies ready. Get the companies ready to a standard where they may accept the management accounts. I think it's a little more a hand holding, even if the companies that do the financial statements, etc., could work with SMEs, develop like discounted programs where they're able to get their business in order to grow and scale further. And within the short term, the medium to long term, they could, have all their ducks in a row and be able to invest in the expensive auditors, etc. But I would say it incentivize them, develop programs to work with them. They're trying to grow their business, they're trying to scale their business to eventually not only supply the local market, but to also export and then generate foreign exchange for our country and repatriate and bring it
yes,
back into Trinidad and Tobago. So I would say a bit more hand holding, maybe incentivize programs within the financial institutions, departments that could work with the SMEs to get them ready.
yes,
Something
yes,
like that could happen through these financial institutions to help the SMEs especially.
yes. Well, we've certainly seen a couple of the banks that we work with on behalf of clients. They are now maintain a cadre of agents, and that can help provide technical advice. So I know
Okay,
that
great.
certainly has helped in some regard, and we have been also been able to do that, right, for some bank clients. And we have, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag yet, but we do have a technical advice bureau, for want of a better word, that we want to launch soon, and certainly something we want to talk to the TTMA more about, where entities for a fraction of the cost can get access to whether it's legal, accounting, and a number of these critical types of technical advice. So I'm happy that you've shared that with us, right? So we sort of like rounding it up now, right? And we certainly want to recognize the role that TTMA plays in this regard, right? currently, what kind of support would you say or resources does TTMA make available to members to help strengthen their financial and operational management capacity before approaching lenders? Is there anything that you're doing right now to support?
Well, TTMA primarily acts more as a, well, we are a business support organization. We mainly act as a liaison between our members as well as financial institutions. Most of the major banks are members of the TTMA. We have RBL on board. We have, well, of course, we have RBL on board. We have other financial institutions. The most popular ones in Trinidad and Tobago, they are members of the TTMA. In one of the financial institutions, they have a representative which sits on our board. And we also work with like Exim Bank, etc. So we provide the support and being the liaison between our members as well as the financial institutions. We do develop relationships and contacts at these organizations and try as best as possible when members need assistance. They need something expedited. They need advice on how to do this application. We do provide that support. I wouldn't say that members always capitalize on the service. They don't always approach us for this.
I was just about to ask you that.
Yeah, they don't. I wouldn't say it's popular. It's a popular request. We don't get much of those requests coming from our members. However, when something arises, especially with the smaller ones, we do provide that support to them as best as we can. We actually have a program, which we partnered with Exim Bank, where we help any micro businesses to get them ready. So fully sponsored by the Exim Bank, where some of them don't have the financials. So it's a bit of a kind of hand-holding program. We do it in very
Great,
small
great.
groups. It's called the Export Action Program. It's done in very small groups, so persons will have to apply, and it's done in batches because you have to handhold the company. So we can't take on too many people at a time, and handhold the company to get them ready to compete locally as well as on a global scale. So getting their financials in order, their certifications in order, making sure they're following certain standards, etc. We do provide that support as well. But he was laughing, Mr. Rollocks, but we don't get much requests in terms of, loan applications and that kind of thing. We more act as a conduit,
Yes.
a liaison, and more for the information sharing that these things are available to you.
So would you say on the whole that they generally capitalize your services, members? They are aware and they come to you on a regular basis for the services that you provide?
Yes, not necessarily with the loan applications, etc., but they do reach out to us for other types of requests that they may have. Sometimes they need import letters. Sometimes they may need help in terms of going the certification or standards they require to export to a certain country. They reach out to us for information on like trade agreements that we may have with other countries, explanations, helping like with like helping with export plans, being a liaison for the Exim Bank in terms of accessing finance, forex in particular, trade missions, that kind of thing. They mainly reach out to us, the TTMA, for that kind of support.
For that type of
Yeah.
excellent, excellent. So just to round up, and I mean, you've shared so much. Certainly, for those of you listening, you're hearing all that the TTMA does and some of the advice have been given so far. But what would be one piece of advice you'd want to give to a manufacturer or SME, manufacturing SME, preparing for the first loan application? What would you say to them?
Sure. So I would say you have to be not only prepared, but also flexible and open in terms of approaching these financial institutions, or even if you're maximizing or capitalizing on I know we're focusing on the RBL manufacturing facility, be open to advice, be open to learn. Sometimes you may approach the bank and sometimes there's a back and forth with financial institutions, and you in layman terms, you think the financial institution is fighting down your business. But we have to remember these organizations, they also have compliance rules that they would have to follow on that may come from central bank, and all of the financial institutions are similar. They do have certain rules and regulations that they have to follow, and you have to be open that you have to comply, and they will work with you in order to but it be to access the financing. So be open to learning, be open to the advice, and as much as possible, try to prepare. We know what is required from the financial institutions. They need the financials, they need the audited accounts, they need the cash flow projections. Information is out there on what you need to what is required of you to apply for the loan. So before you even approach, work with what you have, try to get it in order, be prepared, and then approach your bank. Well, this is where I'm at right now, and I'm sure there are officers within the organizations that will be able to work with you. You just be open, honest, and prepare as best as you can, and they will meet you where you're at.
Okay, so much that this is tremendous. A wealth of information provided there, Alina. And
Yes, certainly.
certainly we're happy to have had Miss Manrique share, you know, so much her wealth of experience and knowledge with us in this regard.
Yes, 100%. It really has been an awesome conversation. And even as I listened to the many challenges Ms. Manrique would have shared, I felt encouraged to know that ABDL's help desk could support with a lot of those challenges. So, because we understand the plight that Ms. Manrique would have intimated when she spoke about a lot of times, you have the SME, the small entrepreneur, it feels like a one-man shop, and many entrepreneurs do need that hand holding type of support, which ABDL does provide. So we encourage entrepreneurs to reach out. Our help desk is there to be able to support and to guide with growth in focus. So whether it's record keeping, statutory obligations, sometimes you're so busy working in the business, it's challenging to find time to work on the business. But that is when we have to recognize the importance of getting help, of getting the support that is needed to do that up and down and back and forth with the institutions. Even when we look at taking that data driven approach to understand what's your position in the market and how to move forward, I really want to remind entrepreneurs that the ABDL Help Desk is there to support. So even as we wind down, I want to ask two things from you guys. Ms. Manrique, of course, I'm going to come to you to ask you about any final thoughts you may have as we wind up the discussion and roll. I would love if you can give those who are listening a bit of detail about the ABDL Loan Readiness Program. So whether they are ready, they're now thinking about it, they've tried, but they had some hiccups and they want to figure out how can I get the support that I need to move forward. I'm sure you're going to have some great details to share there. So I want to ask if you guys would allow me to do those two things before we bring this convo to a close. So, Ms. Manrique, any final thoughts you would want to share in this convo?
Yes, so before we close, I just want to advise the SMEs, the businesses that may be approaching financial institutions to access financing, that to treat the loan as not a transaction but as a growth strategy, that you're taking this loan in order to scale and grow your business and get your business ready to supply the local market, supply the export market, as well as to sustain yourself, your family, etc. As a business, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. So don't treat loans and the loan process and the financial institutions as this is just a transaction. The loan is an investment into your business. So view it as, I would say, as your growth strategy to eventually become self-sustainable, where you will not even you will reach a level at which you may not have to even borrow money from the financial institutions, because you're able to live off of, or to grow your business on your based on your profits.
Yes, certainly. Thank you. And Roel, would you be able to share some insights regarding the loan readiness program?
Sure, sure. So what we have done at Assuage, over the years, we've been working with a number of clients and coming up with some of the same issues. And we felt it was important to have a tool that can help them prepare, give them a sense of where they are in this journey to be prepared and ready to access loans. So we've come up with a tool that we refer to as a loan readiness diagnostic, and it's based upon a 8-point framework, right? So this framework speaks to eight areas of readiness: business profile and purpose of financing readiness, financial readiness, credit worthiness, documentation and compliance readiness, management and governance readiness, market and operational readiness, loan packaging and presentation readiness, and one which we find is often missed out, the area of post-loan readiness, which speaks to sustainability and monitoring. So it's based upon this framework that we've put together a tool that we believe that can be of value before going to the bank or any financial institution for loan, right? So we believe it's a valuable step in the process where SMEs can help self-assess, prepare, and present themselves before they go to their lenders and feel more confident. Of course, the idea is to reduce rejection rates and strengthen financial discipline. So the tool then goes forward to assess 7 key areas. It helps SMEs understand their financial position, right? It helps them improve the loan application quality, and that's something that the tool will assess. Helps to assess the financial literacy and confidence, because oftentimes there's so much jargon going about, and use of the jargon sometimes may be valuable in terms of presenting an understanding of what the issues are, right? So also, we feel that it's important to be timely, right? So the timeliness of your effort in terms of putting all the documentation together, right? We feel very, very critical, right? To making it possible, right? Also important is the whole idea of aligning with lender expectations, right? And of course, encouraging business improvement and policy and ecosystem value. So that's the areas of the tool, right? So we're talking about, in terms of the structure, about 15 to 20 questions with a mix of yes or no, multiple choice. It takes us about 12 minutes to complete, right? And of course, there's a scoring and weighting system, right? And basically, the output would be a simple readiness report, right? Which shows your readiness score out of 100. It demonstrates your strengths, and it will identify your gaps and the next steps to be prepared for the loan. So this is in a nutshell what the diagnostic tool does and how it's valuable, and the framework upon which it's based to help clients and those in the manufacturing sector in particular, Alina.
Sure, thank you so much. So, Rolex, Miss Manrique, I thank you so much for coming out for this conversation. It's been awesome. And I know that entrepreneurs are going to be encouraged, you're going to be enlightened, and they have now some very practical understandings of how to position themselves. And they have an understanding that ABDL has support available through its loan readiness program. So if it is a concern, it's a desire, they now know, hey, there's a place they can go to get people to hold their hand and talk them through. So, guys, until the next one, take care and thank you so much for joining us for this particular program. Have a great one.
Thank you, Ali.